Here we go, my first ever video. We're going to get started with our mobility. So sitting up straight and tall, we're going to start extending and retracting our chin, keeping your chin parallel to the floor, stretching your nose forward and drawing the back of your head straight back. After that, we'll be doing lateral movement, shifting the head left to right. Once again, sliding the chin as though over a flat surface, left to right. Next, we'll begin to connect those points, moving in a circle, trying to keep your head level, but no neck is perfect. So you may have some tilting of the jaw up or down. Just try to keep it level. And then from there, we're going to drop the chin, looking to the left shoulder, sweeping to the right shoulder, finding some gentle side to side movement. And from here, moving into our shoulders. So sitting up straight and tall, extending arms perpendicular from your body straight in front of you. Inhaling to shrug shoulders to ears, exhaling, lowering shoulders straight down. Continue this movement 5 or 6 times. And then we're going to stretch shoulders forwards and backwards, moving the scapula the entire time. And think about zombies. You're reaching forward for those brains. I don't know why I love that so much. Now we're going to connect those points, moving the shoulders in circles, stretching forward, back, down, and forward. And then as you're ready, we'll reverse direction, protracting and retracting in a circular movement, arms only moving because they're in line with the shoulders. From here, we're going to work on our wrist mobility. So find the clasp of your hands and then switch the clasp to the awkward feeling clasp. Do figure eights, tracing your thumbs and your pinkies in each direction, and then we'll move into angry squirrels. Just bending the fingers at that middle digit, that middle joint, and rotate your arms, supinate and pronate your arms up and down, left and right. Stretch your hands and do some independent wrist circles. Moving into thoracic rotation, crossing your arms over your chest, hands to your shoulders, moving only the thoracic spine. So keeping your lower half very, very still and stable. You can also do this sitting on a bench. You're going to rotate up and around, really rotating through the spine to face the far left, arching as though you're like going over think about like an electric fence. So you're sucking your belly to your spine as you crunch forward so that you're kind of like hooking over something. Shimmy your shoulders, give it a shake. And from here, we're going to move into our 90-90s and our hip mobility. So first, working in external rotation, find that 90-90 hip position. You're going to lift and lower the knee, moving from the hip socket, trying to keep the rest of your body as still as possible. Find a slight forward hinge of your body to lift and lower your foot. I know I definitely have greater range of motion on one side of my body versus the other side. And maybe you hold it for 10 or 15 seconds at the end. Then just open that leg as far as you can while keeping the other knee to the floor before rotating and switching positions to do the other side. So once again, lifting and lowering that front knee for about the count of 8. Giving it a hold at the last one for 10 or 15 seconds. And then lifting and lowering the foot. This side is a little restricted in my body, so I can't lift my foot as high, and giving it a little hold at the end. And then once again, you're going to lift and open and close that knee, hinging from the hip socket. And anywhere from 3 to 6 of those. Coming to stand. We're going to do those giant hip circles. Think Matrix bullets. You're dodging the bullets of the Matrix. Really moving your hips through their full range of motion, bending into the knees as you rock back and forwards. Really moving through the ankles. Standing on one leg, we're going to point and flex the foot. Big ankle circles, really spreading through your toes, and give it a wiggle before you switch legs. Point and flex your ankle, working on your balance, warming up your foundation. we're going to start with our breathing. So inhale, letting your belly lift and lower, just feeling where your breath goes. And then we're going to begin to engage the pelvis and find a slight contraction in the belly button. So you're keeping your belly in line with your rib cage. Inhale and exhale, feeling the lateral inflation of your rib cage, feeling those ribs contract as they assist in the expulsion of air from your lungs. And then from there, we're going to take our peace fingers, placing them on the bony prominences of the hip and our thumbs on the lowest rib. Tactile cue points as we move into pelvic tilts, rocking the pelvis from a neutral to a tucked position, thinking about sucking your belly button towards your spine and closing that gap between your hip bones and rib cage, tipping tailbone towards your knees as you lift your hips towards your rib cage. You can kind of see how my fingers and thumb widen and come back together. From here, grab your block, and you're going to lay on your back. And you're going to put the middle skinny, the level 2 width between your knees, and you're really going to clamp down on that block. So I really want a strong adductor engagement. Your inner thigh is really active and supporting your hips as you do some more pelvic tilts. Then you're going to lift your knees into a reverse tabletop position, continuing to work on your pelvic tilts, keeping your legs still in space. From there, with the block still between your knees, moving into toe taps, using that pelvic tilt to lower and lift your legs. I'll do about 8 of those, really moving slowly and with intention. Removing the block. Next up, grab your band. Slide the band up over your knees. So this time you're going to repeat those toe taps, but this time you're keeping tension in the band left to right, keeping your knees about shoulder width apart or maybe hip width apart. Using that pelvic tilt to lift and lower your legs. Really thinking about engaging that deep transverse abdominis. Take the band off, find your block again. This time you're going to hold the block between your hands, extending your hands to the sky, squeezing into the block, creating a contraction between your arms. You're going to lift and lower your legs individually. So that single leg stretch or single leg toe taps. Just tapping your toe to the floor and then drawing your knee back up in space, about 8 each side. Stretch out for a nice full body stretch, fingers and toes stretching in opposite directions. Moving into a supine spinal twist, lowering your knees to the right as you cast your gaze to the left. Checking in with your side body, breathing deep into that rib cage on top, feeling that expansion between your ribs. Reversing directions, lowering your knees to the left as you cast your gaze to the right. Pausing to breathe, inhaling for length and exhaling to settle more deeply into your position. Next up, moving into our core work for single leg stretch, drawing one knee towards your chest with a gentle pump, and then switching, inhaling and exhaling, coordinating your breath with your movement. And scissors, straightening those legs, continuing with that gentle pulse pulling of the leg towards your face. You can add the lift of head, neck, and shoulders for these, or you can keep your head, neck, and shoulders relaxed to the floor. Just make sure that you're maintaining that spinal print, pressing your lower back to the floor. Do 8 each side. Take breaks as needed. Next, moving into bicycles, fingertips resting gently behind your head, rotating so opposite knee and opposite elbow connect in the center, or have the intention of connecting in the center. Total of 16 or 8 each side. Find a little happy baby, some organic movement. Moving to all fours for cat-cows. Finding a nice neutral spinal position, you're gonna do an articulated cat-cow, moving from the pelvis. So your pelvis will be first to move, initiating the arch as it travels along the spine, one vertebra at a time until the top of your head and tailbone extend towards the sky. Then, keeping your head lifted for as long as possible, tailbone tips down as the arch travels along your spine. Next, we're jump roping the rib cage around, down, and through, and this is a really enjoyable organic movement, so feel free to press into shoulders and elbows and hips as much as you like here. Wagging the tail, doing a nice little oblique crunch left to right, closing that gap between your hip bones and your lowest ribs. Pausing for a moment in child's pose, walking your hands to the left, walking your hands to the right, breathing into that side rib cage. Next up, scapular push-ups. So you're lowering and lifting only your chest, feeling your scapula come together behind you, squeezing and massaging your spine. Do about 8 of these. And next we're going to do individual lifts. So you're lifting one hand and then the other, only moving the scapula. So your chest, hips, shoulders should stay square to the floor as you lift and hover your hands alternately off the floor. If this is giving you some wrist discomfort, pause for some wrist circles. And next we'll be extending arms and legs one at a time, keeping hips and shoulders and chest square to the floor. As you lift your leg, try to use the glute, try not to externally rotate through the hip, and then we'll combine the movement, lifting alternate or opposite arm and leg at the same time, working through bird dogs. Next up, so you're going to go find your chair or your bench, whatever you're going to be using for the squats to sit. I'm going to use my handy dandy chair. You want to have a nice 90-degree angle at the knees, the hips, and the ankles. And I want you to start seated so that you know that you're in a secure seated position. So you stand up and then you know that your object is directly behind you and you're not going to miss and topple to the floor. Making sure that you're shifting your weight slightly forward, trying to keep from using your hands to stand up. But of course, if you need an assist, feel free to do so. Then we're going to get the band, slipping it over our legs up to the knees. We're going to do that again. A stand to sit squat, keeping slight tension in the band around our knees. Activating the external thigh, helping to stabilize our knees and our hips, and helping to smooth out and coordinate this movement. Losing the band, losing your chair or your bench. We're going to move into lateral squat. So having a nice wide-legged position, adjusting as necessary. You're just going to squat to the left and then squat to the right. So your knees should be tracking your toes. You shouldn't have toes and knees pointing in different directions. You really want to lean into that hip, really squeezing the glute as you lift and lower, alternating your body weight left to right. And next up, coming back to the floor, we're moving into our glute bridge work. I'm adjusting the camera here, and I'm just going to let that ride because I'm working on my video editing skills. So put that block back between your knees. using your adductors, lift your hips and check. You don't want to have rib flare. Make sure that you got that pelvic tuck, tucking your rib cage towards your spine, tipping tailbone towards your knees. And more importantly, feel like you're lifting those hip bones towards your lowest rib, really drawing your belly button towards your spine and continuing to breathe into your rib cage. Squeezing that block, activating your adductors. And then at the top, hold and pulse for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give it a good squeeze and then lower down. Switch from the block to the band. Drawing the band over your legs, up and over your knees. Lift and lower your hips, keeping that tension in the band, making sure that your kneecaps are tracking your toes, making sure that your ribs are not flaring, that your pelvis is tucked, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through pursed lips, remembering that exhalation against resistance helps to engage your transverse abdominis. After 8 glute bridges, pulse at the top for the count of 8, with a little hold and squeeze, and then lower back down. Windshield wiper your knees, remove the band. And we're going to do a wide-legged glute bridge. So you're going to step your feet wide, maybe as wide as your shoulders, maybe wider, whatever is comfortable for you. You want to have a hip or a width of your feet that is going to allow you to maintain that pelvic tuck, lifting and lowering your hips from the floor, maintaining that pelvic tuck, closing that gap between hip bones and ribs, pulsing at the top. Hold and squeeze. Remember to breathe and lower down. Oof. Crossing your ankle over knee, finding a nice figure 4 stretch, pressing the knee away, maybe give your foot some massage, some love, draw that shin towards your chest. And switching sides. All right. A little camera adjustment here because we're going to come to stand, moving into our balance and hip work. A little bit more hip work. Strong hips are so important, and we've been doing a lot of movement where we shift our weight left to right, which is really mimicking the action of walking and helping to strengthen the muscles that we use in locomotion. So you're going to step one foot onto the block and get your foam roller for balance, and you're going to lift and lower the foot that's out in space, really hiking that hip up as high as you can and lowering it back down all the way as deeply as you can while maintaining a nice straight standing leg. After 8 or so, switching sides. And you can keep your foam roller on that one side. I realized that it was a little bit more stabilizing if I just went ahead and moved it over to the working leg. So after 8 or so of those, just push the block out of the way. We're going to come into some standing work. So standing on your right leg, you're going to lift your left knee at a 90-degree angle, keeping your hips parallel to the floor, and you're going to open and close that hip, keeping your hips and your shoulders square forward, then extending that leg, really squeezing the quadricep, finding length through the back of your leg as you extend your toes forward for the count of 8, and then hold. Oof. Switching sides, planting the left foot, lifting the right knee, open and close your gait. I've got a little more hip rotation here, working on my stabilization as well. After 3 or 5, face forward, extending that leg long and strong, squeezing through your quadriceps as you point your toes, finding length through the backside of your leg, appreciating whatever differences exist in your body left to right, pausing to hold at the end for the count of 5 or 10. Almost done. We have to do our closed eyes work. So I've removed my hands from my Foam roller, whoa, the world gets weird. My eyes are closed. I'm lifting my foot off the ground. I'm trying to open that gate, keeping my eyes closed, building my proprioceptive awareness, and then switching sides, making sure that my foam roller is close at hand should I need to reach for it for balance at any time. Of course, never allowing yourself to fall. Always open your eyes if it becomes too challenging. But over time, this will become easier, or at least maybe more fun. Whoops, bloop, bloop, bloop. Gravity, balance, working on that ankle strength. Awesome. We did it. Okay, now